Hey everybody, I'm Suzanne Barrett Justis, and in this video we're going to go ahead and paint some purple martins. Now if you're not familiar with the species, these are awesome birds. They can eat like a ton of mosquitoes and gnats every night, and so a lot of folks will put up nesting boxes or nesting gourds or making nesting homes for these birds to invite them into their yards so that they can get rid of all those pesky mosquitoes. So stay with me. We're going to jump into this painting of purple martins. And again, thanks so much if you're my subscribers. If you're not, please subscribe. And know that this piece will also be available on Patreon. So let's go ahead and jump into the painting of purple martins. So here's our setup today. Now we're doing a little bit of a larger piece that I usually do on this easel, so we're kind of bunched up. I have my palette here, and I have my kind of warmer brown colors. And you know, I don't always put my palette out the same way every time, but in this event, I kind of have it grouped in bird colors. So a lot of the juvenile and young purple martins are more brown. So I have my burnt sienna, Van Dyke brown, burnt umber, ivory black. I have ultramarine blue, dioxazine purple. Then I've got this, what is this color? It's by the Charvine, it's deep violet. Wanted to try this one out. And that's the dioxazine purple. Got King's blue, titanium white, and yellow ochre. And that's what I'm gonna start with. Now, the canvas. As you saw earlier, I did prepare the canvas just by painting it blue. I just have an acrylic base on it, and then just did a very light sketch with, I say light sketch, it's pretty intense, I suppose, but of the purple martins. And of course, they're a little bigger than life, or almost life size, but maybe a little bit, you know, they're almost life size. So the photo reference that I'm working from came from Karen Brumelslick, and this is what we're working from. So, oops, I didn't mean to magnetize that for you. We're gonna pull that down. And I just thought the composition was lovely. And I've used some of Karen's references before. She's awesome. And I will leave her link. She's also an amazing artist and photographer. So I'm gonna leave her link in the description, so you guys can check her out too. Today's brush lineup is going to start with, I've got, let's see here. This is a number 8 Rosemary Shiraz filbert. I have gotten to where I really do like the Shirazes quite a bit. They're a little softer than the ivories, but a little bit more spring to them than the eclipses. So it's kind of in between the eclipse and the ivory for me. Here is a number 5 Shiraz filbert. I have a number 10 Eclipse filbert by Rosemary. I have a number 2 long filbert Eclipse. I have a number 3 long filbert Eclipse. Pretty redundant. There's a little redundancy here. I probably won't use those both, and this is a little dome filbert red dot, which is a really nice synthetic sable. Really hard to tell the difference, honestly. I really do like these as well. So as you see, I've used mainly synthetics, and it's not an ethical thing for me necessarily. It's just that's what I prefer. Some folks have an ethical reason for using synthetics, but I use both. But I really do like these particular synthetics. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna start blocking this in, and I'm probably gonna work from like left to right, so I'm not dragging my hand through wet paint. So I may just work in this area and almost get this kind of all the way in as I move down. So I think that, you know, I always say I think that's going to be my plan of attack, but it doesn't always work out that way. So what I'm going to do is going to go ahead and enlarge. This is one of the reasons why I love working off of an iPad, and just kind of enlarge that little bird so I can see it. And we're just going to take off from there. At this stage of the game, I'm taking my glasses off because I need to mainly only see the, I just need to see the big picture, not the detail yet. So And I have a light on up here. I am going to go in and start blocking this bird in, and I'm always looking for the dark values. So I am going in with a little ivory black, and unfortunately you can't see the palette, but you know where to, I'll try to call out the colors, but here's my palette here. I'm just gonna have it right below us and see how this works. And I'm gonna mix a little bit of the dioxazine purple into that. And because I have now this, I say that I am using this acrylic as my background. I'm not necessarily married to it, meaning I could come back and do some painting in the background, but I did like the idea here of working this way. So you can say I'm on the inside of the bird pushing out, because I can always adjust, and I'm trying to incorporate the charcoal into the piece. I'm going to switch, put a little bit more of the violet that I put down, and I'm going to give this little bird a little bit more of a hump right there. I'm just really looking for all the dark values, but I'm looking for color switches too. And I do have my glasses off. I'm taking a little bit of burnt umber and a little bit of purple mixed in, and just kind of putting this in here, especially right here at this point. Now, this area is really dark, and I will be able to lighten it up later. Like I said, right now, I'm just getting in the dark values. So I'm not even worried about where the eye is going to be. And this bill. Now, anybody knows me knows that I will, they have almost like a little hook. Now, maybe I should zoom in a little bit so you can see that better, since that's where I'm working. Getting the bill right is important to me. So I'm going to zoom in a little bit more. That's as much as I can zoom on my iPad. So I'm trying to be really careful to not go out of my lines that I drew. Now, I did kind of freehand this, so that is always a scary thing, because I could have a lot of errors on this. But I'm trying to be very conscious of my execution here. I'm gonna go ahead and put, I'm taking a little bit of titanium white, mixing a little bit of yellow ochre and Dyke brown. And just coming in here. And if I happen to blend a little bit, that's okay. That's probably actually a very good thing. And I see, and I'm always looking for shapes. And I'll pop this, for my Patreon folks, I will pop the reference up for you. Turning back to that deep dark brown purple that I created here earlier, going underneath here. And there's this line here. Okay, so I am switching to a little bit of a cooler color. I'm adding a little bit of, I see some grayish blue colors in here. So I've mixed some Ultramarine Blue in with my Dyke brown white combination. Just coming underneath here, it's a little bit bluer. there's a lot of detail in here, but I'm not worried about detail yet. I'm using a little bit of oil. And I am using a pretty small brush for me for a beginning of a painting. But because I am wanting to make sure that since I've got this charcoal sketch down, that I don't get too, I don't know, outside of my, the area that I want to work. So I'm trying to be very, very, very deliberate. Not to say that we shouldn't always be deliberate, but you know, and I think you know what I mean. And even though I'm not doing detail yet, I'm still being very conscious of the flow of whether it's the feathers or the way thing, you know, the direction. I'm very conscious of the direction of things. Now that yellow ochre white combo with a little bit of Van Dyke brown, I'm putting some of that up here. I'm using the side of my brush. So even though this is a little filbert, I'm kind of doing a weird little side blend, if that, does that make sense? See how I'm not holding it this way, I'm holding it like this, but then going along this way. Okay. Now the whole underneath of this little bird, you know, that yellow, and this is where I could probably use a larger brush, but you know what? I'm pretty comfortable with the way I'm going right now, so I'm not going to. So I'm making a little bit of more of the Van Dyke brown yellow ochre mixture. And if it's too yellow for you and you need to neutralize it, just grab you a little bit of the violet. Just plop that in there. That'll help pull down the yellow a little bit. So I'm going in here, just getting the shapes. I actually see a shape that comes out here. So I'm taking away that charcoal. And then it comes out here. Yep, okay, so that's good. Now it's a little lighter than it should be, and it needs to be a little bit more neutralized. So we're adding more purple. And maybe even just a tiny bit, make it a shade while we're at it. Really, it's really a tone at this point, since I already have quite a bit of white in this. I'm adding a little black too. It's just a little too, yeah, that's a little bit better. It may be very light at first, but I've got a lot of details to add into this, and I just want to base down. Now, there's kind of a pinky. I'm going to take a little bit of King's Blue and mix it with that really interesting violet color, and kind of start putting some of that in this way, right in here, and letting it blend with the color I already have down. And it does make for a really interesting, I don't know, just underneath here. This also, using the acrylic base, is actually kind of a neat, it's kind of new to me. I haven't done this for very long. I like how it gives it even a little bit of a smoother surface. You can always use oil paint over acrylic. You can't go the other way. All right, so I'm going just leaving that for now. Okay, there's a big white area here. I'm gonna switch modes, start going in with some pretty seriously intense black and a little bit of the violet combination, and start hitting some of these dark values. I'm wanting to really make sure that I stay true to the structure. So if I have to erase some of the charcoal, I have no problem with that. So if you remember when I did the painting of the great blue heron, I did a very similar kind of concept where I painted the background completely in with the acrylic and then charcoal sketched on the heron. And I was really pleased with how the charcoal blended with the paint. I am here too, but I know that on on that particular piece, there was quite a bit of charcoal left behind, but I kind of thought it was, I don't know, seemed very artistic to me. I left it. Now, I could have erased it off, but I didn't. I liked it. I'm going in with a little bit of a combination of burnt sienna and burnt umber, and I'm doing a very direct method of painting where I see this color in here. I could stack it later, but I'm not going to. I'm just going to go ahead and paint it directly, because there's going to be plenty of time for me to stack later. But so there's going to be some of this charcoal over here is going to have to come off, but I'm okay with it like that right now. There's a very big highlight here. So I'm taking that, if you'll remember, the purple and the violet, excuse me, and King's Blue, and I'm going to suggest where that goes because it's going to be a lot lighter, but I just want to kind of put it in here. So it probably needs to even be, there we go. Because it'll have a lot more white on it. Let's see if I can come in a little closer for you. One of these days, guys, when I start making some money with the Patreon and the YouTube channel, I will buy more equipment so that I can do a better job for you. I do want to appreciate all my Patreon folks that are patient with me. I don't have another camera, and I'd love to be able to show you my palette as well, and that's coming. Or I can set it up. As a matter of fact, my son is ordering me some equipment for my workshops. So if you're interested, I will have a workshop, provided COVID doesn't have a different idea about how this should roll, on January 14th and 15th at the Booth Museum in Cartersville, Georgia. And it will be on doing pet portraits. So I'd love to have you guys there if you ever want to get down that way. It's a 2-day workshop. Please check out their webpage, and you can sign up there. That's not right. I will leave a link and more information in the description about the workshop that I'm teaching. So I'd love to see you guys there. There we go. I'm seeing that I may have to, no, that's okay. You know, sometimes I'm doing things on the fly as I'm, there we go. I know that's very light, but it's going to change later. I am going to take some of the Van Dyke brown and a little bit of, no, I don't want that color. I want Van Dyke brown, believe it or not, a little King's Blue. Yeah, that's what I need. And I'm gonna put that right in here. So you can see I'm painting with a more direct method, and that's okay because, like I said, trust me, there will be plenty of opportunity to do a lot of stacking of color, but right now I'm just kind of blocking it in with the basic colors that I need. Okay, we're gonna take a little bit of the you know what, that doesn't behave like burnt umber. I'm adding a little bit more burnt sienna to it. From this point down, there's another. So you see that I left this cool color and then it kind of switches to a warmer color. And I'm going to add a little bit more of the violet to this. And you know, it's very subtle changes, but it's kind of the beautiful thing about painting birds. Sometimes there are just little subtle color shifts. I'm going to back it out a little bit. And I'm going back. So I have a little bit of that color that I was just using here on my brush. I did not wipe my brush off, but went ahead and picked up some of the ivory black violet mixture that I already made, and I'm coming down on this, always checking my angles. Now they should remain straight, so I may obviously be pulling some of this off. So this is a little off and this will be erased. A little bit of oil. I'm just going to leave that there for now because there's a lot of stuff I've got to kind of figure out. Let me get my eraser. After I erased my mess, I really just concentrate on getting a lot of the darker values in, and I'm using a combination of Dyke brown and dioxazine purple, and I'm just delineating the area of the wing, making sure I get the cut in where the feathers are going and all that good stuff. And here I have to make some adjustments because I know as I'm coming down the tail here in a little bit, I know that I have to make some adjustments. And that's not unusual. Even though I do a sketch, it doesn't mean my sketch is always exactly accurate. But I'm putting in the the hind wing or the back wing here, putting in the lighter values, and then I'll be able to blend them together. So getting those in using a combination again of, this case, it's burnt umber and a little bit of ivory black. And I'm referring to the fact that I know the tail is a little off and I know I'm going to have to go in there and get it. I'm using an Eclipse filbert, which is a small one. I believe it's a number 2. Just a nice size. Great size for doing small details. I can get in there and get into the tight places. So once I delineate where all the primary feathers go and the undershadow of the wing against the body, then I just keep moving through the piece. So here I'm addressing the fact that this is not exactly right. I'm showing you on the picture that the tail is a little bit straighter here and not so, there wasn't like a flat area. So I've changed the tail a little bit, brought it out, made it a little bit wider, and I'm looking at the negative space on my reference photo. So keep in mind, it's good for your brain to pop back and forth between negative and positive space constantly, and it's the best way to check your, your proportions in your paintings to make sure everything is lining up correctly. Now I'm putting in a lot of the darker values, the shadows of where the mass of the bird's body is against that pole, and cutting in his wing. And even at this stage, folks, this is not detailed. This is still what I consider blocking it in. So I'm always being very conscious of my shifts in color, whether it's value or temperature, and knowing where everything's going and getting my shapes correct. The detail will follow, and that, of course, is always the fun part for me. But, good detail on bad shape, it totally misses the boat. So I'm trying to make sure I'm getting everything in here. And but I have to say, I am really enjoying this piece. The process of this painting went rather quickly for me, and I had fun the whole time. Now, the paint colors that I'm using here to create that shadow, it's a combination of the Van Dyke Brown, Ultramarine Blue, and a little titanium white, and it keeps that cool. I got the coolness in the shadow part of this bird. And then I'm using titanium white and yellow ochre for some of these areas here that I'm popping in these light values. Yeah, I know that the undertail will have a lot of what I would call shells. It's shelling where the feathers are layered up. So yeah, just popping everything in. Now, I'm going to start layering in some of the feathers, and just the feathers on the breast in that area. So you can see I'm taking that same small Eclipse filbert, which is a number 2, and I'm just kind of laying in the little feathers that's on the chest, where you can see that they look like little shells. And there is a kind of an interesting pattern that the juvenile purple martins have, and it's fun. So okay, they're standing when they mount these nesting gourds or homes. This happens to be a lead pipe, and you would be surprised how much color you might find in a lead pipe. And even though I did use a straight edge when I popped in the charcoal sketch, the vine charcoal, the best way to keep a straight line, folks, when you're painting is to do it quickly. It's like ripping a Band-Aid off. The faster you do it, the easier it is. So I am using a number 5 Shiraz filbert to do the pipe, and I'm probably trying to figure out now where to go from this point here. But just getting that pipe in, I'm starting to feel grounded. Now I'm starting into the father bird, and the purple martin, as the name implies, has a lot of purple in it. It's a beautiful, beautiful bird, and purple and blues, and they're dark. They're dark like the night. These birds are, they're actually a larger bird for the type of martin, martins and swallows, those types of birds. They're probably about maybe the size of maybe a little bit smaller, or about the size of a robin. They're about 8 inches, their body, but their wingtips, their wings are especially long. You can see how long they hang down from the body, and their wingspan is as much as 18 inches, which is pretty big for this bird. So I'm putting my dark values and getting my darker blues down. And I already see a problem in the beak, and I will be correcting that. So you'll see how I end up correcting it. Keep in mind that my background paint is actually acrylic. So I can't paint acrylic on top of oil. So there's going to be a little tricky thing coming up here. You'll see what I'm talking about. But for now, I'm just blocking in this bird, and the wing feathers tend to be kind of a dark brown, kind of a brassy or coppery brown color. So I'm using yellow ochre and Van Dyke brown mixtures. I'm also, if my yellow is a little too yellow, I am putting a little diazine purple or the violet that I have. So you can see I keep lengthening the wingtips because I realized I didn't really quite get the wingtips in long enough. So you'll see things morphing even on this adult bird because I have to really study that photo reference. So keep in mind too, folks, that paintbrushes work in all different directions. You can approach painting from the bottom up or from the top down, and you can see I keep switching the angle of how I'm holding my brush depending on how I want the feathers to lay. So I'm putting in the purples in the neck and throat patch area, and then where there's ruffles, I'm putting dark values underneath it. My dark value happens to be a combination of the dioxazine purple and ivory black. And I'm putting everything in. I also did, one color I did put on the palette after I had already called all the other colors out. I did add Indanthrene Blue to this mix. Oops. Now, sorry, I gotta apologize for this brightness. This is sunset. When the sun sets in my studio, it gets really bright and really hot in this window, but the colors are pretty fun. So for now, we're gonna ride with it and just have fun with the colors. And I'm putting in some of the highlights too, even though still, this is just the blocking in stage. I am having a ball with it, and you can see how the feathers are changing, and I keep wiping and cleaning and all that good stuff. So now it's time to start the third bird. This is the mom. And there's a cool side and a warm side to this bird, the way the sun's hitting her. So you can, I think you can figure out which side is which. So on the warm side of the bird, I'm using the ivory, I'm using the titanium white and the yellow ochre mainly. But then on the other side where it's cool, I've introduced a little bit of Van Dyke brown and Ultramarine blue. So popping all the colors in, again, concentrating on shapes and forms, and I am even putting in some of the neat patterns. Okay, I have to say, this kind of stuff was fun. These are the gourds, or the little homes that they actually build. They don't build, they just nest in them. And these were fun. They're bright white, and I thought it was a really important element to this painting. The original photograph that Karen Bromoslick had these, this is how she took the photos of these birds because they're a nesting colony. And I loved these things. Even though I didn't do the whole nesting box or nesting gourd in the painting, I did enjoy just this part and making the little, rusty clips that hold it on. It's the little things. And I might probably enjoy this part as much as I enjoy doing the birds. Okay, so this is the next day. So I've had a little bit of dry time on this, and now it's time to do details and to make corrections. So I'm widening out the head, flattening it out here, but I'm watching where that mouth is and thinking, I might have an issue here, but I'll end up fixing it, no problem. And I'm putting in the detail, and I'm wanting to highlight some areas and correct other areas, and that's what I'm doing here. So I'm using a little bit of the dioxazine purple with a little bit of King's Blue for the highlights, and I'm using it, even though this looks like a little pointed round, it's actually one of the smaller, it's a number 0 eclipse filbert, and you can see I just made some corrections. So I've got to take that bill on the bottom out, and I'm trying to mix a color that will look close to my acrylic background color. Now, because it's a different medium altogether, and I really didn't want to have to paint a whole background in, I may have to really address this later after it dries. I have to see how this dries. I keep trying to get a little bit closer to the actual color, but until it dries, because of the oil, I won't know if I did a good job with the match. And if I did do a good job with a match, so be it. I'll leave it as it is. If I didn't, I will go back either and add some more oil to the background just to make everything look uniform. So I'm getting this eye in, and it's very dark. So the reference that I'm working from, I about can't see the eye. It's almost so dark you can't see the eye. But I didn't want to leave this little bird eyeless. So understanding the structure of the bird, they have a very high, intense brow ridge. I'm just kind of going with it. I'm doing a little artistic license here and putting in where I know certain parts go, and doing a little bit of the detail along the way. Time for some bird feet. I'm using burnt sienna, just a little bit of the violet color and white to make the bird feet, and then I'm going in underneath, putting in the dark values and the nails. And I also have to look at the fact that the intense light does create a shadow. So to do the shadows, I'm actually taking the Ultramarine Blue and Van Dyke Brown mixture and mixing a lot of oil, and that's those shadows right there. So they are transparent. I want them to be, to look like shadows and not like just dark lines. And that's how I do that. So after I do a little highlighting on there, and I just load the very tip of that little brush and just put some highlights in there on the nails, and that's all you can see on the foot that's in the shadow. And so there you see the reference a little bit. Now it's time to get into the dad and do the detail on him. So you can see I did have to make some adjustments in his bill as well, and I'm hoping for the best on that background color as it dries out, and then kind of reassess it later when it is dry to see that it's okay. But I like doing the detail on the wings. They're beautiful, actually, and I like to really keep in mind about the structure that I'm working with, and the primaries, the secondaries, the coverlets, all that good stuff is fun for me. And you can see how it's all going in. Now it's time to work on the mother bird. And again, I'm going back in, emphasizing the dark areas first, because I'd already blocked her in, but now I've got to add all the fun details. And she has a shadow right there where her bill is, and that's the same process with the Van Dyke Brown Ultramarine Blue mixture with a lot of oil, and just keep working around everything. And I'm starting to add some more detail, lighter values, and all that fun stuff. And it's fun to watch these pieces start to come to life. And also corrections. So I had to get that same heavy brow ridge in there, and I move things around just a tiny bit, but I'll get it. You'll see. It'll all come together. The highlights on the top of her head is King's Blue and Ultramarine Blue mixture, and working my way through her little body. And, you know, as I had mentioned earlier, we have a light side, a hot, warm side of her body, and a cooler side to her body, which will have the cooler colors. And you can see which side is which. So I have to add the details accordingly. So I'll have warm details and cool details, depending on which side of the bird's body I'm painting. So I pop back and forth, and I've got those in, and I'm using the smaller, that's the Eclipse Filbert number 4. And you can see the highlights on that side of her body are cool white, where the others are a warm white. And now time for more bird feet, because you know how much I love bird feet. And working on the lower part of her tail. And yeah, little details. And we still have some little shadows to put in there as well. So I got to get those shadows in. And voila, I think I'm finished. And so I really had fun with this piece. And sometimes it's the silly things, like the detail in the pole and the clips that hold the nesting gourds on, and just the birds themselves. It was a fun piece, I have to say. I hope you enjoyed watching today. I hope you enjoyed today's video on painting the purple martin. And if you did, please give me a thumbs up. And if you are not a subscriber already, what are you waiting for? Go ahead and subscribe and join in the fun. Ring that bell. You'll know when the next video comes out. And if you want to take your painting process just a little bit further, join me on Patreon. I have a Patreon channel, and basically a lot of the videos that you see here on YouTube, you get to see the real-time unedited versions of my painting process. So we have a good time, and and most of my students will tell you that they've learned a little something along the way. So again, thank you so much for joining me. If you have any questions about today's video, leave it in the comment section and I'll get to you, I promise. And if you have maybe even a suggestion of something you'd like to see, leave that in the comment section too. Fill it up with a whole bunch of positivity. Let me know what you're thinking, and yeah, it'll be fun. We'll put the next video together for you, and we'll just have us a big old time. So from Kingsport, Tennessee, I want to say thank you for joining me, and until next time, bye.